You are now rocking with the 3-yard play.
Right.
We just figured out a 3-yard play, fam. We're gonna win every time.
Yeah.
Hit that link with you. Come on in.
You're tuned into the 3-Yard Play podcast. Well, the only question is, does it work for you?
Trail got wings, bitch.
We been working all year. It's game time. We all here. We turned up. Oh yeah. Cause we finna be the champs this year. We been working all year. It's game time. We all here. We turned up. Oh yeah. Cause we finna be the champs this year. We live in weight just to hold up the trophy. Flag on the plate, cause them haters can't hold me. And 1, 2-a-days and run up the biggest hill just to sharpen up my skills. They hit the scoreboard first, I had to hit them drills. Time I get around the corner, they gon' see my new wheels. After practice, till the lights come on, till they bust ride out and they gone. That rally had us help, my teammate down the steps. Player, we got plays you ain't even seen yet. I post up and fade away like graffiti. Just don't claim it's love when you see us on TV. We been working all year. It's game time. We all here. We turned up. Oh yeah. Cause we finna be the champs this year.
3-Yard Play podcast.
We been working
brought to you by reality.
all year.
Where it is, what it is.
Game time.
You get what you get.
We all here.
So comment and let us know where you live.
Yeah. Cause we finna be the champs this year.
El Bravo debut out.
You start with the reference to
On all
God.
streaming platforms.
Grew up like a
Featuring
dog.
hits like
Never
Young
out of
Jit,
hardships. Used to
Stowaway,
not problem.
My
Rockin'
Book of
on
Life,
Starship.
and
Knowing
many
how you
more.
going.
Follow El
Going
Bravo
on.
at Lab
Ever
Tech
since I
Music Group.
stepped in the
It's
game,
time.
I done started.
Like a stowaway,
Debut out. Release me.
just like
In
a
stores now.
Your homeland's far away. Take my hand and let me lead, though. I feel like they wanna take me, but they weren't ready to me. Take a shot at the back of my hand and leave me for dead.
El Bravo. Release me. In stores now.
What's good? What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the 3-Yard Play podcast.
Yeah,
What's up, T-Mac? What's up, Trip?
was good.
All right, so what we're gonna get into today, man, I think we all watching our pockets, right? Inflation is high, rent is up, everything is up right now. So we got to watch this dollar. But man, have y'all been watching the news? I mean, like, I think some other countries are starting to pull some power moves to try to rearrange how the dollar is circulated in the world, nationally, internationally. I've read around that Russia and China, a few other countries have decided to make the one, I think it's called the yuan, Chinese yuan currency, as the main currency that everybody is going to use, trying to get away from the dollar. Some other countries are doing the same, similar scenario. It's kind of a shaky situation, especially when we go back and think about what happened with the Silicon Bank recently crashing and having to be acquired by another bank. So, what do you guys think about that?
I think it's been a long time coming. For a minute now, Dana, since we were in history class, at least in undergrad, I remember them discussing the fact that OPEC, which was the kind of the League of Nations that had a lot to do with the petroleum and gasoline, that they were starting to, kind of click up more. I didn't want to say click up like it's a gang thing, but they were starting to, really organize more amongst themselves and collectively raise the price and the value on their resources to be able to charge the United States and Europe more money. And it's one of those things, I guess, being an American citizen, I feel like, oh man, that's unfortunate, and the value of our currency is going down. But as an international citizen, you can see the writing on the wall of our nation was a great military nation and took over, through force in a lot of places and or gained influence in a lot of places through wars and different forceful acts, and were able to arguably garner, relationships and or directly get people's resources in the cheapest possible ways to us that may not have been the true value to them. So now people are more collectively just asserting their power and feel like, yo, we don't want to be forced to do this. We do a lot of business amongst ourselves that we should not have to deal in your currency when we don't have anything to do with you in the deal. And also, we're not going to let you keep, extracting resources and or getting so many benefits for as cheap. So with that being the case, then I get it, man. Sometimes the table shifting the game, so I can't say like we getting cheated, or maybe it's just a natural order of things kind of shaking out, but it will be different for us economically.
Right now, so I agree with a lot of things that you say, and even question whether uh, we're ready for that. You know what I mean? As a country, you know what I mean? And so it also leads to, shoot, what do I do next? Though, you know what I mean? That's what my mind. That's what my mind is like. You know what I mean? What do I do to start getting ready for this when we're talking about retirement and the dollar don't look the same? You know what I mean? What does tomorrow look like for me in terms of, do I get a job or start a business? You know, that type deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? Do the markets open up where I can start buying more foreign currencies and investing in that way? Can I get on the Chinese market if they about to take over? You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot going on in this world. You know what I mean? So like I said, that new world order. You know what I mean? When I heard about 30 years ago, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's just how things unfold. It's weird, boy. It's weird. So just trying to stay ahead, keep my head on the swivel, meaning educated, staying woke. I know that's controversial, but I'm just trying to stay woke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is my question: is by being woke, well informed at this point, when do you pull the trigger? You know what I'm saying? Like, for so long, we've heard the imminent, doomsday coming, right? But we still go about our normal day. We still put our money in the same places. We still shop it the same way. We really haven't made any adjustments really to correct or even get prepared for it. So when do you pull that trigger? When do you say, okay, this is it? I got to start at least putting away or changing some of my currency over to the one or whatever other currency there may be out there. When do we do that? Because what is the sign that says, okay, how many more signs do we need to know that it's time? It's time to start thinking about investing or moving our currency in a different way.
Yeah, I think in terms of that, it's kind of arguably kind of a twofold thing. How do we know when to make that move? I think first and foremost, we make that move when we have the right information. When we understand what it is. Because I made the mistake before jumping out there on something that I felt, well, this is a good deal, X, Y, and Z, and don't have the proper information. And that can cost you just as much as not making the move at all. So that's one of those things where it's like, dang, that's just pretty unfortunate. And then also overall, as we look at it, it's just a great shifting. So I think, one thing you brought up is that we've had, this is, I guess, the second part of it, that we haven't changed our habits yet. And I personally the older I get, I'm more content with less. And it's not to have an attitude of lack, but it's more just an attitude of gratitude and appreciating the simpler things of life and just the things that truly make me happy. Now, I deeply invest into those, but I don't have to have as much. But arguably, across the board, a lot of people have not at all adjusted their consumption level. And right now, I was looking at something, I was just discussing the environment, and they were saying that since, it's been probably over 10 years now, but we're at a consumption rate that's like 175%, on a global basis every year, to say that like there's the natural resources are not being replenished. Every year we're just depleting more and more and more. There were times, back in the 50s and 60s and 30s where it was more of a balance and it was more sustainable. But now with, the influence of the Industrial Revolution and just technology and the way that we've gotten better and better at harvesting and providing from, farm to table to in terms of food consumption, we're at a point now we're able to get you, your food, and people have an appetite and taste for things that far outweigh the actual natural production of things. And so, more and more now you have the artificial foods coming in and the GMO this, and they have to kind of do a lot more to grow food faster just to support overall the global consumption. So, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with, we just haven't dealt with the reality, because so far we haven't gone to the store and the shelves been empty. If that makes any sense. So we don't think about the gas problem until you go to the gas station. Either there is no gas, or the gas is $6, or the line is retarded. We don't really get on those things until it's an absolute emergency, and that's unfortunate. I try to do better by it myself, but I was slacking a lot of ways too. If there's no gas at the gas station today, I'm gonna be out of gas like everybody else.
Right. Now, I don't know if y'all remember, but I think this same method was attempted by like Saddam back in after the second Gulf War, where he basically told everybody that you couldn't buy gas or no oil without the euro. He basically made all of the European countries switch over to the euro, and that's when the euro kind of took over and passed the dollar. And then all of a sudden 9/11 happens, and then we abruptly shift from bin Laden and go straight to Saddam. And then that and the first thing that Bush did was he tried to turn the table and say, okay, now you got to buy the oil back with the dollar. Well, that was like a prelude of showing you that was the recipe to diminish the dollar, force other countries to not use the dollar because of the natural resources. So, I think that's what Russia and China kind of saw, and they also know that they had a military might though together, to defend that type of stance. You know what I mean?
Right. And they were saying that Saudi Arabia, it's kind of like the last domino standing, if you will, because if they switch over to, because right now they take pay all oil payments in dollars, I guess referencing what you talked about in the Bush years.
Mm-hmm.
And so like they now are thinking like, hey, if we switch over and go with Russia and China, then we totally amount of markets. You know what I mean? We totally shift the power a lot. You know what I mean? So that's gonna, to your point, Trip. I grew up hearing about these times. You know what I mean? They were coming, so it's not like, oh my God, oh you for real? This is what we were told to be prepared for. You know what I mean? And so it's just weird though that that it's here. At the end of the day, it's here.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, not to get, totally down the conspiracy path, but I remember hearing talks of Gaddafi, when Gaddafi passed away, they were saying that had to do with why Gaddafi got killed. In Libya, they were in the process of really trying to spearhead the push or the idea of an African-wide currency of the continent of Africa coming together, and them, having their own euro type of currency, and that Gaddafi was kind of instrumental in trying to bring, African League of Nations together and get them to have their own currency to kind of govern a lot of their resources. And people say that's, arguably a big reason as to why he wound up losing his life, because they said when you really look at it, he was doing I mean, of course, there were people who were unhappy with him in the country, but they say he was doing a lot for the country as well. Of the people there got, free education all the way through university, free healthcare, and a lot of good benefits that arguably we don't have over here. When, a lot of times in the U.S. news or in the media, we would hear about him as kind of a tyrant or he was doing bad things. But then to hear, after he passed away, they were saying, well, nah, he was actually just trying to make some, business moves and things to place Africa as a continent and the African nations in just, more powerful positions. So that's, and arguably that's the wild thing about power, and that it's to some degree like land. It's not as much like land because you can create new things for people to have power over, but overall, there's a limited amount of power. Like there's a limited amount of land, and so when somebody gains power, inherently somebody else loses power. And it's kind of to the point where I think the other nations are starting to gain more power financially, and inherently we're losing financial power.
Right, and what you're saying is like it's about control, and that's what a lot of these countries want. They want to take back control of that land, and so they can have that power. Like I said, there ain't but so much of it. So now it's about being in control of it. You know what I mean, and not being bullied like you talked about earlier. Into some situations. You know what I mean. And so it's gonna be interesting, man. Like I said, and how we move forward. Like I said, we are heavy consumers. We don't necessarily lead in a lot of areas anymore. You know what I mean? We're followers. And so how big is that mindset shift going to be? And will it happen before it's too late? To your point, like usually it's in your face or an emergency right at the time most people recognize. So how do you? I guess I'm gonna tie it back to what we talked about in our last podcast, because it was about you gotta in these situations like this. How do you communicate with others when you don't have all the blame? You know what I mean? When you have a lot of knowledge, how do you humble yourself enough to remember how to connect with somebody who does not know what's really going on in this space with the devaluation of the dollar. You know what I mean? So it's gonna change a lot about how we move. They're gonna have to raise interest rates a lot, which can cause a whole lot of a lot of financial strife for a lot of people. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be interesting, man. And how we move as a people to fix all this, or do we get ahead of it, or do we react to it?
Well, I say, just in closing, and LJ will let you wrap it up, but in closing, Thomas, you hit on a lot when you talked about the fact that we're not the leaders anymore, we're the followers. And I think that's that's something that I try to keep in mind myself, and any young people listening, I think it is of the utmost importance of education. Education is key, because arguably, we have so much outsourcing going on, but with the vast level of outsourcing going on, what's unspoken and nobody's talking about is, well, damn, that means arguably the international education must be that much better than ours, and that these they can now send the jobs over there, and the people do as good of a job without this even being their first language. They still just know either mathematics or computing or programming or whatever. It's so in depth that even as they struggle with the language barrier, they still just deliver either equal or superior work product for that much less, and it's that much more of them that do it. So it shows that we have to make education of the utmost importance, and you got to be on the international level when it comes to competition, because no longer is it just we're America, so everything is surrounding us. Overall, it's becoming more of a global landscape, and so we've got to position ourselves to be at the top. And then, just final point, forecasting with everything changing. And LJ, you're real good at looking at industries or kind of seeing that writing on the wall of I'm gonna position myself over here because that's the way things are moving. And I think that's something we got to be cognizant of as, Americans, U.S. citizens, people over here, is that we all understand markets enough to know that somebody always wins. Even when the market goes down, there's people that win. So, that's what we got to do for ourselves on an individual basis, is figure out, well, with things changing in this regard, what areas do I need to be in? What services, what skills do I need to provide, so that once this gets to where it's going, then, what I can benefit from a windfall of things going this way because I was already prepared and in that lane providing services that I could see were going to become necessary. So, that was just kind of the way it makes, kind of the takeaways for me just from discussing this with you guys.
And I'll close with just saying that, man, I think a lot of the problem with even the education part of what you was talking about, Trip, is that it's a money grab. We've made it a money grab over here in the United States, while other countries have made it a necessity, where they know that their future depends on their children becoming educated in these fields. So they're not about to burden them with all of this extra weight of student debt. So a lot of times in America, what is glorified is, why don't you be a YouTube sensation or something real quick, in media or entertainment, like we talked about earlier, and education is kind of put to the back burner because it costs so much, even if you become a doctor, now you got a license that requires you to pay, 100 and something thousand for insurance or something a year. It's just ridiculous. So until we start valuing the youth over here in their education as far as building this country, and it's been a snowball effect for a while now. The writing's been on the wall. It's been coming that the educated ones from overseas were coming, eventually because of the way we run our system here. But I don't know, man. We just got to sit down and start like really reassessing where we put our money. I heard someone tell me that, hey, I might need to invest in gold, and I was kind of I don't know about that, because if it really crash, who am I going to give the gold to? You know what I'm saying? Like, I probably need food. I need water, those types of things if it's really that type of situation. So I'm not sure what gold would be good for other than giving back to the government that already said it's devalued. But anyway, that's it, y'all. At the end of the day, does it work for you?
Question didn't ask. Does it work for you?
Yes. Like, subscribe, leave us comments. Tell us what you think. Tell us if you got any ideas of how we should move our money around to make it safe. We need help out here.
Hey, real talk, man. That's out to y'all, man. Thank you.
By the way, we not financial planners. None of this is financial advice. Just know that we're asking questions.
He throwing up the A-Town. In case folks like, is he throwing up the Folks Nation?
Turn it down.
Yeah. For folks be out there, 3-hour play that game, baby.
I got you.
Y'all. I could just see the side of it. I was like, I just see the side of that thing.
That was East. That was like Atlanta.
Right.
All right.
New Black Magic Jr. album, Riot's Work, coming soon. Featuring bangers like How Deep, Cursed, the Poland Remix, Rolling, and many more. Also, be sure to check out the album Sleep Well and Breaking Cases of Mercy.
Alien technology that took the skull and bone silver first for all of y'all to see. Black magic in the flash, hacking through the algorithm, killing shit the best.
New Black Magic Jr.
running full court press. Jordan back after getting shit off his chest.
The truth is the hardest shit.
You see, the thing that separates us from every other group of slaves is the fact that...
Thank y'all for tuning in today and every day. And remember to keep running your 3-yard play.
Look at them mouths, we feel like flowers, they gon' grow. We gon' water the season, watch that harvest flow. I've been crunching
cause we know heroes are made in the off season.
There should be no reason
and grind the slow is better than crashing out
we
the
get
dough.
that money bound for we don't want it.
Let's say, young brothers, remember,
fulfill the promise.
I ain't never 3 yards every day. They can never
I can't
stop.
read that narrative, so ain't no need of calling us. You ain't never had to tell your kid being black was a sin, cause his skin was reflected through America. Taking care of us was just a handout, right? But it was fair when free labor was just as nice. I can bet you your life, your kids living alright. Cause me and mine had to do
been rocking rocking with the 3 Yard Play Podcast.
I get mine, yeah. You get yours, yeah. But together, nigga, we gon' get some more, yeah. Look at them mouths, we feel like flowers,
So
they
like,
gon' grow.
subscribe, share,
we gon' water
and let's
season, watch that
discuss.
harvest flow. Whoa. I've been
What's up with
punching
us?
numbers, winter, fall, spring, and summer. There should be no
Thank
reason
you.
that the baby
Tuning in
never
to
hunger.
3
When
Yard
we get
Play
that money,
Podcast.